Get back. Welcome, and this is my Joker review. I know I'm a little late on this review. I know the movie came out last year, but I wanted to make sure I saw it more than once, and I was only able to see it in theaters one time, and it was right before I moved. So now that I've been able to see it again, I have some opinions on it. My hair is so green right now. We're gonna just do this and see kind of some of my opinions on the movie and what we thought. So, Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix, Robert De Niro, Zazie Beetz, and directed by Todd Phillips. Now this is an R-rated picture, and I cannot believe that this movie was even made. First of all, you know, it's R-rated. It has some stars in it that you would never expect to see in a superhero movie or a villain movie or any kind of comic book related anything. It's pretty crazy to see that, and you know, to have something kind of like a Scorsese type movie such as Taxi Driver is pretty impressive to see coming from DC. This is also not connected to the DCEU, which is very interesting considering they have their own Joker. And then they decided, you know, we're just gonna make this. So, you know, we have Jared Leto, who played Joker in Suicide Squad a couple years back. And my opinion of that is I thought it was a valiant attempt to play the Joker. But after the amazing performance by Heath Ledger back in 2008 in The Dark Knight, that was not, I think, what people were wanting for a follow-up actor playing Joker. As much as people like to give that version of Joker grief, looking back on it, I liked that idea. My philosophy on the Joker has always been he is always reinventing himself. Every time you see him, he looks different, he's acting different, or he has some new shtick. So in a way I did enjoy that, but this is much more true to form, as much as it does stray away from the comics, and it's, I think, what people were really looking for. Also, I want to talk about director Todd Phillips. If you research anything into Todd Phillips, you'll think this is pretty interesting. Most people know he's mostly a comedic director. He directed the Hangover trilogy. He directed quite a few of those type movies. One movie that really stuck out to me that he directed a long time back was the Starsky and Hutch movie, which was kind of a remake, I don't know the best word for it, but it was kind of just like a movie version of the 1970s TV show Starsky and Hutch, with kind of his own comedy and flair into it. Owen Wilson, Ben Stiller. That's a movie that I think is really underrated. I really kind of enjoy it quite a bit, and I think it's pretty well written, and I think it was very true to the characters that you saw in that TV show, which I think is kind of the first steps into being able to make a movie like this. Another great movie by Todd Phillips was the movie Due Date, starring Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis, which was another comedy that had, you know, kind of a road trip kind of feel to it. You know, Robert Downey Jr. playing the straight man, and then Zach Galifianakis playing the more interesting, out there character. And I think that movie is also another stepping stone into becoming what he would eventually do with Joker. I think with Due Date, the cinematography in that movie I think sticks out quite a bit for me, and I also think that that movie has a very good balance of comedy and drama. There isn't a lot of drama in that movie, but what I did notice is that whenever those moments hit in that movie, they hit very well. That's kind of one of those situations where I thought to myself, wow, he could actually be a serious director if he actually had the right material. And as you know now, I think that is pretty obvious. Now, the other thing I do like about Todd Phillips is just the fact that he is able to stretch his muscles as a director, and he's able to really try to jump into something different. I think he has already kind of made those tools that he needs with these previous movies, and now he's able to kind of utilize them fully with this movie. Okay, so Joker is actually quite a bit different than the Joker that you think of when you think of either the comic books, the animated series, the Jack Nicholson version, the Cesar Romero version from the Batman Adam West TV show in the 60s. Also, the Mark Hamill Joker that you see in the cartoons. I think this is its own thing. But it also works within the ideas and the philosophy of the character, at least in my opinion. I think that the way that they handled an origin of Joker is handled just as well, if in some cases better, if not better, than Batman the Killing Joke, written by Alan Moore. I think they take a lot of ideas from that, and I think it's actually a very smart move. A lot of things they talk about in the Alan Moore story, Batman the Killing Joke, is that the Joker doesn't really have an origin. This could be one version of it. The version they show in that comic, they take a lot of ideas from, but they also do the same thing in this as they did in that, which is, this may not all be true. I don't think this all is exactly what is happening and what you're seeing, especially when you're getting into later into the film, when you start to come up with some revelations. Now, I think we're going to get into a little bit of spoiler territory here, so if you haven't seen Joker, I highly recommend you stop this video, watch the movie. Everyone's been watching it. I think it's really important that you do see it for many reasons, but I am going to get into some spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, make sure you stop now. Okay, so a lot of the things that happen in this movie are in Arthur's head, which is, you know, there's a lot of moments with Zazie Beetz, the woman he doesn't live with, but he's in the same apartment complex as. You get the idea that they're dating, or that maybe he's, you know, seeing her, and you find out that's all false. And not only is that not true, but Arthur Fleck is not his real name. It's the name that his adopted mother gave him. So we don't even know what his real name is, which makes him just as mysterious. And I almost take this movie as if it's the Joker telling, you know, say Batman as he's captured and tied up, Joker telling a version of the story. If it's not Batman, it's just some random guy that he kidnapped and wanted to kill for fun, and he tied him up and he's telling him the story of how he came to be. Maybe the guy asked. There's a lot of ways you can interpret this movie, and there's a lot of ways that it fits. So it's a lot of fun to be creative on your own end, but then you can also take the movie for what it is. And what it is a very well told story. Basically, you start out with Arthur Fleck, kind of a rundown guy who is not all there in the head, lives with his mother, and he is a kind of a clown. He gets paid to do all kinds of random things, you know, visit hospitals, twirl signs, promote things. He's always kind of down in the dirt, and no one really pays attention to him, and everyone kind of takes him the wrong way. And this leads down a bad path of him making bad choices and other people not caring, that leads to him becoming this figure. Now, with Arthur Fleck, he unintentionally kills 3 stock exchange guys from off the subway, and when doing that, he was in his clown makeup, which basically inspires Gotham City, which is not the Gotham City you've seen in a lot of versions of Batman or anything. It is very much inspired by 1970s New York, which was not the best place to live back then. It's safe to say that, you know, it was crime-ridden, it was dangerous, it was dirty, there was garbage everywhere, and they talk about those things. They talk about a garbage crisis, there's garbage on the streets, they talk about the crime, and then you have Mr. Wayne, Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's dad, basically being a kind of a jerk version of the character that we think about, who is basically saying, you know, we are above this, we got to come together, but we also, you know, you guys got to work harder at making Gotham a better place. That, I also think, is another thing you could interpret, that the things that Arthur sees on TV of Thomas Wayne that makes him such a bad person may not have gone that way in real life. Just an interpretation. It could go exactly the way it is in the movie, but I like to think of it that way as well. And I like to think of the movie in a different version or a different concept every time I see it. So he inspires the kind of the lower class of Gotham to kind of revolt. And with being in this clown makeup, he's inspiring them to wear these clown masks, which kind of turns Gotham into an even more dangerous place. Now, we also have Robert De Niro's character, who plays a talk show host, Murray Franklin, who is inspired by many different talk show hosts, but he represents a lot of things in real life that we are seeing today. He represents the people who are very renowned for what they do, and they feel like because they're renowned for that, they can kind of get away with whatever they want. They can make fun of people without thinking of the consequences, because it makes good television, because it makes good jokes. And that's what happens to Arthur Fleck. Arthur goes on stage at a comedy club and tries to do a set, and basically laughs himself out of it. Arthur has a condition where he has kind of uncontrollable laughter in nervous situations. It's a brain thing. And so he tends to have this laugh that puts him in pain, pretty much. It shows he's in pain. And he does that when he's in this stand-up. And what ends up happening is Murray Franklin catches on to it, gets the video, and well, the rest is history. All of these things are happening, which basically puts Arthur into a spiral in his life, many other things that I'm not gonna 100% get into, because I also suggest you just watch the movie, but also because I don't wanna stand here all day and just retell you the movie. After a long period of time of finding out all of these crazy things about his family, his friends, and Murray Franklin, his mom, basically it spirals him out of control to where he starts killing more, and he takes on the persona of the Joker. And the real chaos ensues the last 30 minutes of the movie, when the entire city basically comes together with him to destroy the city. Now, this movie has a lot of Oscar buzz going on. It has 11 Academy Award nominations. At the time of filming this, the Academy Awards have not happened. It's one of the highest that Warner Brothers has had in probably 30 years. They've had some bigger ones here and there, but it's been a long time since something like this has really taken hold. And I really think that has to do with the director, the cinematographer, the score, the actors, and everybody else. But I think this movie was kind of one of those it was like lightning in a bottle, where everything kind of came together. We need to talk about Joaquin Phoenix, who plays Arthur Fleck, or the Joker. I mean, what else can I say that people haven't already said in other videos? What I will say as a fellow actor who really loves the craft and really loves the art of performance, I have to say I really respect everything he did in this movie. His choices were very unique. One thing I did notice that I'm very happy that I saw on the actual copy that I have is in the special features they talk about how they could have recut an entirely different movie with all new footage and made the same movie but just slightly different, because every take Joaquin Phoenix did so many different versions, and it was all so unique and so different that they just kept going and they just kept doing it, which was awesome. And I love seeing stuff like that. That's a very hard thing to do as an actor, and to see him do it that many times with so many different scenes really just stretches those muscles for him and shows just how good he really is. So I really think he deserves the Best Actor nomination, at least. When it comes to his research on the laugh and everything like that, I think it's incredible. He really does look like he is in pain when he's laughing. He really does look like it is not fun for him, and it really looks like it's embarrassing at the same time. I mean, he's sitting here doing this, and in the worst moments that he could possibly have this issue, they happen, and they end up, causing more problems, and you see it on his face like this is not a good thing, and I feel awful about this. One moment I really want to shout out, which I don't think I've heard anybody talk about, is when he's on the subway, and it's before he kills those Wall Street guys. He's sitting there, and the Wall Street guys are kind of harassing a woman across from them, and he's watching, and I don't know what it is, the look on his face when he's observing and watching is something that is really hard to mimic, and it's something that is really unique, and it really stuck out to me because it looked so genuine. You could read exactly what he was thinking in his head, and you could read exactly kind of what was going on in his mind. Some of the things I was looking at when he just made that little glance, and maybe a half a second of a scene is, I wonder, this isn't okay, this is awkward, I don't know what's going on, but also this is kind of funny, those guys are kind of being funny, and then this is also, I feel bad for this woman, maybe I should do something, maybe I shouldn't. So many things going on in his head in that scene, and that's also a really great testament to the actor. I'm really disappointed that this is going to be kind of a one and done movie. In a way, I get it, and I do, you know, think that will kind of hold this movie up high for a longer period of time. But I also just, the more you watch this movie, the more you want to see him interact with Batman. This Joker is so good, and he's just so, there's so many intense details about this version that you have to see him up against Batman and see how he reacts to that, see how he deals with that, or see how he comes up with ideas towards that. Okay, next is I want to talk about Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro, like I said, plays Murray Franklin, who's a talk show host. He does a great job in this movie. He really doesn't have a whole lot. He has some really important scenes, and he's a very important part of this movie, but I really enjoyed the parts he was in and the scenes he was performing in, especially that final iconic scene of them talking on the talk show, and Joker blows him away. That scene's very good in many ways, but Robert De Niro sticks out to me a lot with his delivery of some of the lines he has, which is very, this is his fault. He brought Arthur here to make fun of him, which is what he says, and it's very true. And Murray Franklin has been doing this for so long that he has it in his head that everything he's doing is totally justified and okay, which on the other hand with Joker is also the same case. He thinks everything he's doing is justified and okay, which it's not. And the things that the way he responds to Murray Franklin is not the right answer to this, but I also think that Robert De Niro does a very good job of showing that as well, that he is trying to be a very good person, and he has a lot of really good ideas and good messages, but they're not coming out that way in the scene. Also, I want to talk about Zazie Beetz, who plays the woman who lives down the hallway of Arthur in his apartment. She does a great job. I loved her in Deadpool. She's a very unique actress. I think that her facial expressions, her deliveries are very natural, and they're very well done. And I also think that she is going to be in many other movies and do an amazing job. Her career is, I think, just starting, in my opinion. And I think this movie was perfect for her as well. She also is one that doesn't get a whole lot of time, but what I did hear is behind the scenes that as the story was progressing and as they were shooting this, she had her own input onto how this character should be, which I think is amazing, because that's what makes a memorable character. It's not always doing exactly what they say, because sometimes that could lead to something a little bit more bland. It's always good to listen to your director, but it's also very good to, you know, say, you know, I kind of feel like I'd be like, this character would do this. I kind of feel like this character would act a certain way in this case. And I think from what I've heard, she did that, and I think that's a very good quality in an actress. The next thing I want to talk about is the speeches that Joaquin Phoenix has been giving. It's just a small little thing I want to add, which is he's won quite a few awards already for this. I know he's won some at like the SAG Awards, and he won an actor, I think is what they're called. He also won a Golden Globe. Those speeches have been so amazing because he's such an awkward guy in real life, and he's really uncomfortable in front of people and everything like that. But the thing that I really respect is every speech he's been giving, he's been up against some incredible actors. You know, people like Tom Hanks, Adam Driver, many others. And he has nothing, Christian Bale, he has nothing but amazing things to say about these people, and he always makes a point to shout them out and just talk about how amazing they are. If you haven't seen his SAG Award speech, I highly recommend you watch it, because it is one of the classiest and nicest things I've seen any actor say when they've been given a wonderful award like that. What do I think is going to happen in the future? You know, I've been hearing rumors that there may be a sequel to this movie, not because anybody wants to do it, but because of how much money it made. And I think there's a really genuinely good opportunity with that. On the other side, I'm a little nervous to see what they would do, because that could taint the reputation of the original movie. So we'll just have to wait and see. I'm really happy that DC is kind of taking some risks with these movies. I'm really happy that they, as much as I like the DCEU and I like how they've been kind of trying to build a universe and it's not quite worked, I'm glad that they're taking a step back and saying, let's just do some good storytelling. Let's get some good people in there, get some good actors, good directors, good writers, and just see what happens with that. So that's great. My take as a comic book nerd, you know, DC is my favorite publishing company for comic books. My favorite characters are out of DC. Batman is, I think, my second favorite superhero of all time. As much as I, know a lot about comic books, I was really nervous going into this movie, thinking that they were going to do a lot of things that were I was not going to be happy with, or I wasn't going to agree with, and I feel like they were just going to take the property and just use it as a catapult to tell another story, which some people have said. But for me, I think it is a genuinely good Joker story, and I think my favorite aspect of it is that the Easter eggs are not obvious. Some of these smaller things that are nods to the comic book, you have to really, really pay attention to. Todd Phillips was interviewed, and in a lot of interviews he turned a lot of people off because he talked about how this is definitely not a comic book movie, this is definitely not, this is a standalone thing, this is going to be a very different take, and a lot of people thought, well, he just wants this property, like I said, to catapult whatever story he wanted to tell. And even if that is the case, he's a bigger fan than you think, and if he's not, the writers that helped him also were, because there are pretty deep references in there that I won't spoil, but I'm very happy to see. And then the one other thing I wanted to talk about is what this meant for around the controversy around the issues with mental health that they talk about and address. And I disagree with the people who say that this movie glorifies the Joker and makes him a good guy, or makes people sympathize with him to a point where he's right. Never once in this movie did I ever think that anything he did was the right choice or the good thing to do. Never did he inspire me. The only thing he did was tell a very genuine tale, which is we really need to pay attention to the people who truly need help in this world, and there are a lot of them. And there are a lot of people who don't have a very clear direction or clear path in their life, and they need those people to show that they care and to show that they are here to help. And this movie kind of puts a mirror up in their face and says, this happens, and this is a real thing. As much as this is a movie, and as much as, this sounds crazy, these things happen every day, so we must take care of each other, and we must really band together to help people with mental illness, with people who need help with anything in life. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is this movie, I think, could have only been made today. There are arguments in my own head that I think you could have made a version of this movie at any point. I think this movie will continue to be a timeless film. And the cinematography really helps with that. It's some of the best cinematography I've seen in a movie in a while. I really enjoy how it kind of has a time period, but it's hard to pinpoint exactly what the time period is. Very Batman animated series in that sense. But also, this movie really probably exactly how it was, and I think the reason the response is so big on this and kind of divided is because it could have only been made in this time because of what is going on in the world today, and what is going on with so many things going on with people, and people really wanting to people really kind of doing all these calls for help, but we have so much in the media, so much in the press, and so many just people on the street who are just so caught up in their own thing, whether it's making money, whether it's utilizing negative aspects of life to make that money, whether it's, just kind of putting blinders on and not focusing on anybody else. And it's a shame, because there are people who truly need someone to think about something else besides themselves. So if, I think what they're kind of saying in this movie is, if you can take anything away from it, it's take a step back, take a deep breath, and why don't we, take a look at the person next to you and see how they're doing. But that's my Joker review, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't seen the movie, make sure you go see it. I mean, I've already kind of spoiled some of it for you. If you have seen the movie, tell me what you think about it in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. I truly will look at every single comment, and I probably will respond to all of them. So if anybody has any opinions or any questions, any insightful things that they want to talk about they can let me know. Make sure you follow me on my Twitter @StrandedJay, and on Instagram you can search StrandedJay and find me there. So that's going to be it for this review, and I want to thank you so much for coming.
Shay?
It looks like Shrek took a dump in the shower.
Can I see?
It kind of has gone down the drain at this point.
Oh, okay. It came out really well.
Yeah.
You're gonna wash off the makeup, right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.